morning.
Good morning.
My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. This is how Thomas Merton began a prayer he wrote in 1956. It captures the state of our world so well, as it had been written yesterday. But what a brilliant and unconventional way to start a prayer. It's both a confession and a profession of faith. Merton is confessing that he's lost, and that if he depends solely on his own resources, he will remain lost. His progress down this road is not up to him. He needs to trust in God as he blindly walks this path. He goes on, "The fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so." Now, it's entirely possible that Merton isn't lost at all. I mean, just because you don't see the road ahead doesn't mean it isn't there. But it could also be true that while Merton thought he was walking according to God's will, he was merely telling himself that as he was walking his own path. It can be hard to figure out if you're doing God's will or your own, even if you are literally walking with Jesus. And that brings us to today's gospel. At least for me, this gospel requires a little context. In the previous chapter of Mark, James and John, along with Peter, accompany Jesus up the mountain where they witness Jesus' transfiguration and hear the voice of God tell them that this is his beloved Son, that they should listen to him. In the paragraph directly preceding today's gospel, Jesus takes the 12 aside and tells them in unsparing detail about his death and resurrection. And it's immediately after this that James and John demand of Jesus, they don't ask, they demand, that they want him to do anything they ask of him. Can we just take a moment and marvel at the hubris of these guys? These two take the prize. They're walking with Jesus, literally, not metaphorically, and still, they do not know where they are going. And worse, they don't even know that they don't know it. And how does Jesus react? He doesn't rebuke them or try to put them in their place. These men are his friends, after all, and they've walked with him from the beginning of his ministry. Instead, he asks them if they are prepared to drink from the cup that he will drink from. Now, we like to poke gentle fun at the apostles about how they're rock-headed and how they just don't get it. But we have the advantage of perspective. We know how the story ends and how it continues. They, however, were in the middle of something unimaginable, even though they had seen miracles and healings and heard the voice of God. But rock-headed or not, the implication of saying yes to Jesus' question is clear. They just heard Jesus describe his faith, and now he's asking them to share it. Is it because of their overarching and overreaching demands? That's not for us to know. In the gospel, their reply is immediate, but it's not hard to imagine that James and John took some time to consider what they're being asked to do. And, in contrast to the thundering voice of God coming from a cloud on the mountaintop, this was the gentle voice of their friend and teacher, who simply was asking them to follow his lead. And their reply, "We are here." Can we take another moment to marvel at the courage of these guys? And these two still aren't off the hook, though. While Jesus didn't rebuke them, the other 10 apostles react exactly as you'd expect. They're ticked off. Some of them were probably outraged that James and John would make such a bold request. Others might have been angry because they thought they wished to ask first. But Jesus challenges them. You want to become great, he asks? Then serve. You want to be first? Then be everyone's slave. It's a message not just for the 12, but for all of us. Mark doesn't tell us how the apostles reacted to this message, but I imagine they must have been a little ashamed that they let themselves get caught up in this pettiness. But let's get back to James and John and their reply to Jesus. We are able. We are able. No. That has to be an inflection point in their lives. Maybe one more profound than hearing God's voice on the mountaintop. Or maybe it was an inflection point in retrospect. They will witness Jesus' death and resurrection after all. Is it a stretch to imagine that they would think back to this day and to the promise they made to their friend, their teacher, their Savior? We are able. And they were able. James was the first apostle to be martyred. John's fate is less clear, but scholars believe that he led a long and long-suffering life in the name of Christ. Let's take a moment to marvel at the faith of these guys. And this brings us back to Thomas Merton's prayer. He continues, "But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all I am doing. I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it." When James and John made their demand of Jesus, they were walking their own path. But they remained receptive to God's will. And when Jesus asked, something opened up inside of them. And so it is with each of us. Maybe the desire to please God, even though we are bound to do it imperfectly, maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough simply to say, we are able. I'm here today to kick off our annual stewardship campaign. And the theme of this year's campaign is clearing the path through the wilderness. To be honest, I struggled to figure out how that theme and this gospel come together. But those three words uttered by James and John, we are able, they rattled around in my head. And I realized that those words are what connects everything. This year's stewardship material is in the mail. When you receive it, please take a moment simply to look at the photos of what we have been able to do over this past, most difficult year. We were able because we relied on our friends, our teachers, our Savior. We were able because we were Christ in the world to one another and to our greater community. This is simply the time of year to answer the call again. And I know we will. We always have. We are able. Now I'd like to conclude with the full Thomas Merton prayer, to do it its full justice. It's called a prayer of unknowing. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may not know anything about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone.